All right, today we are going to unpack the very DNA of your workplace. We're going on a journey from Cogs to Collaborators. And trust me, it's a story that explains a whole lot about your 9 to 5. So, let's just dive right in. Have you ever sat at your desk and just wondered, why on earth do we do things this way? Why all the rules? Why are some meetings this creative free-for-all, while other tasks feel so locked down and rigid? Well, it's not random. It's actually all part of a much bigger story. Okay, so our story kicks off way back, amidst all the smoke and steam of the Industrial Revolution. For the very first time in history, you had these massive factories that needed to organize thousands of people under one roof. And the first solution we came up with was, well, to basically treat people like parts of a machine. And this is where we get to our first big idea, viewing the entire organization as a giant, intricate machine. The goal was super simple: make that machine as efficient as humanly possible. The thinkers of this era were obsessed with finding the one best way to do absolutely everything. And the undisputed master of this whole approach was an engineer, a guy named Frederick Taylor. His big idea, which he called scientific management, was nothing short of revolutionary. He really believed that any job, from shoveling coal to assembling a car, could be scientifically analyzed and then optimized for peak performance. And Taylor's principles, you can see them laid out here. They have this kind of cold, hard logic to them. First, you scientifically study every single movement of a task. Second, you select and train the perfect worker to execute those movements flawlessly. Third, you make absolutely sure they follow the method precisely. And finally, the most crucial part, a clear divide. Managers think and workers do. Period. No overlap. And really, this quote from Taylor himself, it says everything you need to know. The goal wasn't to make the worker happy or fulfilled. It was all about making the system perfect. The individual person was just secondary to the efficiency of the machine. All right, so at the same time, you've got this other guy, Max Weber. And while Taylor was obsessed with tasks, Weber, he was all about structure. He's the one who gave us bureaucracy. And yeah, I know, that word makes all of us groan today. But his goal was actually pretty admirable. He wanted to kill favoritism. He imagined a system that ran on clear rules, defined hierarchies, and promotions based purely on merit. And hey, don't for a second think this is all just ancient history. This machine-like approach is absolutely everywhere. The reason you can get the exact same burger in New York and in Los Angeles is because of these principles of standardization, efficiency, and a clear division of labor. It works brilliantly for tasks that need to be predictable and repeatable, but it's definitely not the whole story. Because, a funny thing happened on the way to creating this perfectly efficient machine. Researchers stumbled upon a discovery that would change everything, and it was completely by accident. This was the start of a human revolution in the workplace. And this right here, this captures that shift perfectly. We went from seeing workers as just cogs in a machine, motivated only by a paycheck, and started seeing them as complex social beings, driven by things like belonging and recognition. The entire focus pivoted from pure efficiency to morale. So the story actually starts at a place called the Hawthorne Works, a big factory just outside of Chicago. Researchers came in to answer what seemed like a very simple, very Taylor-like question. If we make the lights brighter, will people work faster? So they cranked up the lights, and just like they thought, productivity went up. Awesome. But then, here's the twist. For the control group, they turned the lights way down. And guess what? Productivity went up again. It was never about the lights. They had just stumbled onto something huge. And this discovery, it became known as the famous Hawthorne effect. The workers weren't responding to the lighting, they were responding to the attention. For the first time, somebody was asking for their input, observing them, treating them like they actually mattered. And that alone was enough to make them more productive. So here's the big takeaway from all this. The Hawthorne studies basically proved that the social world of the workplace was this incredibly powerful force. The informal friendships, the group dynamics, and employees' overall morale, these weren't just nice-to-haves. They were massive drivers of performance. The human element was officially on the map. So what did this discovery do? Well, it basically kicked off a whole new era of complexity. If people aren't simple machines, then maybe, just maybe, there isn't one simple, best way to manage them. The modern reality, as we now know, is way more nuanced.
This is where we get ideas like systems theory, which is really cool. It asks us to stop thinking about a company as a machine and start seeing it more like a living, breathing ecosystem. It takes in resources like talent and capital, and it interacts with the outside world. And crucially, every single part is connected. A decision in marketing creates waves in finance. A problem in engineering absolutely affects sales. It's all one interconnected web.
Okay, so this brings us to the million-dollar question, right? We've gone from machines to humans to entire ecosystems. So after a whole century of searching, what is the single best way to run an organization? The answer? The single most important and maybe a little frustrating answer in all of modern management is it depends. The simple idea is the absolute core of what's called the contingency approach. The search for the one best way was officially over because, well, it never existed in the first place. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. I mean, just look at this. Would you manage a creative brainstorm the exact same way you'd manage a hospital emergency room? Of course not. One requires freedom, flexibility, and collaboration. The other demands a clear, fast, top-down hierarchy. The best style is entirely contingent on the situation, the task, and the people involved. Okay, so let's bring this all home. How does all this theory actually show up in your daily life? Well, the reality is you're living with the ghosts of all these theories every single day at work. The truth is, your company probably looks something like this. It's a blend, right? You've got those bureaucratic elements like HR policies and a clear org chart. You have the human relations stuff like team building events and a big focus on company culture. And hopefully, your leaders are using a contingency approach, adapting their style to whatever challenge is at hand. It's always a mix. So, I'm going to leave you with this question, and I really want you to think about it. Take a look around your own job. When you look at how decisions are made, how teams are structured, how you're motivated, what do you see? Do you mostly see the gears of a machine, the bonds of a community, or the interconnectedness of an ecosystem? Because at the end of the day, this history, it's not just some boring lesson, it's a toolkit. It gives you a lens to finally see why your workplace works the way it does. And once you can see the machine and the community and the ecosystem all at play, you gain the power not just to navigate it, but maybe, just maybe, to help change it. Thanks for tuning in.